Well, as Britons face a costly winter, the government regulator for energy, Ofgem, says energy suppliers are failing the vulnerable in the UK. Well, according to reports, Ofgem addressed the issue with all 17 firms and even pointed out 5 firms with severe weaknesses. The regulator's findings also found that suppliers set the debt repayments high, resulting in customers deciding that they could not top up their prepayment meters. But some of the suppliers are calling the review incomplete. Some consumer groups describe the regulator's report as hugely concerning. Now, this report comes at a time when the energy bills are hitting double the level of last winter. According to the regulator, some of the worst examples of poor practice include suppliers failing to read the meters of customers who could not do so themselves. It also found that some vulnerable customers were unable to contact their supplier to top up their meter. In some cases, debt repayment rates were set so high that vulnerable customers did not top up their prepayment meter when the credit finished. Mike Buckley. All right, for more on this story, let's bring in Mike Buckley. Mike is a senior journalist and political commentator joining us live from Sheffield there in England. Hello there, Mike. Thanks so much for joining us. Firstly, what is your interpretation of what we've just heard there? What is the situation looking like heading into winter?
Well, we've always had a case in the UK where the poorest people have paid more for their energy than the wealthier people in the country, in the middle classes. Because they're forced to go onto prepayment meters, which means that they pay by cash before they use their energy rather than paying by direct debit as wealthier people do, which is essentially the energy company saying, we don't trust you that you will pay, after you've used the energy, so we want you to pay up front. It's the equivalent of going to a petrol station or gas station and being asked to pay before you fill up your car or your van with diesel or petrol or gas. So it's an inherently unfair system. So they pay more per unit. Now what's happening, of course, is that because of the energy crisis, the poorest people in society are being asked to pay more than everybody else for their energy, which is inherently unfair. And as you were saying, it appears that a number of energy companies are putting, greater debt burdens on people or threatening them with higher payments if they overuse their energy or dip into negative balance on their prepayment. Just the people just aren't paying at all, which means that the most vulnerable people in our society are going to be facing cold. They won't be able to put the heating on. They won't be able to put, the cooker on. They won't be able to put the lights on. And this is, of course, poor people, many of whom will be elderly or will be disabled or will have children. And it's inherently unjust in any country in the world, but particularly in a country like the UK, where we pretend we're a wealthy country. And in fact, we're an incredibly unequal country where poor people here are now poorer than they are in some parts of Eastern Europe, like Poland and Slovenia. Countries that we would have once thought that we were richer than, across the board and across society, and we're not anymore. And that's the result of the fact we've had a bad government for 12 years, and our country has been growing more and more unequal over that time. So we're a poster child. We're an example to the rest of the world about how not to conduct, economic growth and how not to grow a society and how not to let inequality grow within a society. So it's horrifying to see, and I do hope that the energy companies will step up and do more to help people who are most vulnerable.
Yeah, you're certainly right about that, Mike. Tell me, given what you have just told me, what is your advice to people heading into winter, which could potentially be particularly nasty?
Well, I would advise them, first and foremost, to call their energy company now. I read the same report that I think you did this morning, which said that people are sometimes finding it very difficult to get through to their energy company. First and foremost, they should call their energy company and try and work out with them how they can get to a point, how maybe they can go on a cheaper tariff. There should be what's called social tariffs available to people who are very vulnerable and without much income, which are much cheaper than the tariffs available to everybody else. And that's the right thing, because people at the bottom of the pile need more help. If they can't get through to their energy provider, it may be possible they could move to another energy provider. So there's a list of energy providers in that article that it says are dealing better with vulnerable companies. Maybe they can shift to one of those. It may be worth calling another company. Alternatively, contact Ofgem, which is the regulator that deals with energy. Now, I think it may be a bit of a convoluted process, but it's worth getting on the phone to talk to them, to complain about their energy provider, and they may be able to offer more advice.